I shouldn't have heard it. The words weren't meant for me. But standing there, grease on my hands and the faint hum of an old fan filling the silence, I caught her voice through the half-open door of the office. "I laughed at my husband's plans," she said, not with humor, but something brittle. "And now he's building a future without me." I froze, holding a wrench like it had suddenly grown heavier. It wasn't my place to linger, yet something in her tone, half regret, half disbelief, latched onto me before I could move. The woman in question, Clara, wasn't supposed to be more than a customer. She came into the shop 2 weeks ago with a car that coughed like it was on its last prayer. She had this way of walking in, confident, polished, mid-40s with lines on her face that made her look more alive, not less. Most people rushed their words, fumbled their phones. She didn't. She looked directly at you, steady, like she had already decided who you were before you opened your mouth. And yet, when I brought her coffee last time while she waited, just because it seemed polite, she thanked me twice, softer the second time. That second thank you lingered with me longer than it should have. Today she sat at the counter, paperwork scattered in front of her, reading glasses perched low. I'd only meant to drop off her car keys, tell her the oil filter was replaced, the rattle mostly gone. But then she sighed, low and weary, and let those words slip out about her husband. I didn't know if she realized I heard. I pretended I didn't. My throat was dry anyway, so no words would have come out if I'd tried. Instead, I set the keys down gently so they wouldn't clink, like even sound would feel intrusive. "Everything's running smooth now," I said finally, keeping my voice even. She looked up at me. Really looked. Not the way customers do when they're half distracted, but with the full weight of her attention, as if my face carried the answer to a question she hadn't asked. My chest tightened, and I forgot what else I was supposed to say. "Thank you," she murmured, sliding the glasses off. "You take more care with the car than most people do with people." Her smile was quick, almost self-mocking, like she regretted saying it aloud. She brushed a loose strand of hair behind her ear and went back to her papers, leaving me standing there, gripping the counter to ground myself. I should have left right then. Instead, I found myself asking, "You want me to top off the washer fluid?" "Won't take a minute." Why? I don't know. Maybe I just wasn't ready to walk away from the gravity of that moment. She tilted her head, a small crease forming between her brows, and then, there it was. That pause. That fragile, stretched-out silence where something unnamed flickers alive. "Sure," she said at last, voice softer. "If it's not too much trouble." Trouble. I almost laughed. For the first time all day, I forgot the ache in my back, the dirt under my nails. When I went back to the garage, I caught my reflection in the dusty glass. 20-something kid with oil smudges on his jaw, staring like he'd just walked out of someone else's life. I shook my head, but the echo of her words stayed with me, more stubborn than the smell of gasoline. It was nothing, I told myself. Just politeness. Just a pause. And yet, when I handed her back the car later and she touched my hand, brief and unthinking, I felt it all over again. That quiet, unspoken current between us. I didn't know then what it meant. Only that I'd carry it home with me. The way you carry a song you can't stop humming, even if you don't know the words. It wasn't supposed to be more than a routine favor. She called the shop asking if someone could check the brakes again. They'd been squealing despite the work I'd done. My boss was tied up, so I offered to swing by her place after hours. Her driveway was lined with overgrown shrubs, the kind that hid corners of the house in shadow. The porch light buzzed, half dim, and for some reason that small imperfection made the place feel less like a stranger's home and more human. Clara met me at the door, holding her cardigan closed with one hand. The other balanced a mug of tea. She looked tired, like sleep had been rationed into fragments, but she still managed that careful poise of hers, the kind that said she didn't want anyone to look too closely. "Sorry to bother you again," she said. Her voice carried something between formality and apology. "It's no bother," I replied, though my throat caught halfway through. I crouched by the car in her garage, the faint smell of cedar mixing with motor oil. She stood a few feet back, arms folded, not aloof, exactly, but guarded. like she wanted distance to be the rule between us, even in her own home. Still, I couldn't help noticing the small things. The way her fingers rubbed absently against her mug, circling the rim. The faint laugh she let slip when her cat darted between us, nearly tripping me. And how, when she thought I wasn't looking, her face seemed heavier than usual, as if she carried conversations no one else could hear. I asked a question about the car, some throwaway line, just to keep her near. "It's probably me," she said after a pause. "I hear things that aren't there lately." Her voice faltered on the last word. I looked up from the wheel well and caught it. That flicker in her eyes, quick as a blink, where confidence gave way to exhaustion. Vulnerability, raw and unguarded. She turned away almost immediately, busying herself with adjusting a stack of old boxes. But the air had already changed. I tightened the bolts, forcing myself to focus. Still, my gaze kept drifting back, to the slope of her shoulders, the tremor in her hand as she set her tea down. I wondered if she even realized she trembled. When I finished, I wiped my hands on a rag and said, "Should be quiet now. Nothing dangerous, just some looseness." "Good," she whispered. Then louder, "Thank you. I should have left. Keys, rag, goodbye." That was the script. But when I moved toward the door, she reached out, lightly, almost unconsciously, her fingers grazing my sleeve to stop me. I froze. Her hand lingered just long enough to burn through the fabric, then slipped away as if it had never been there. She cleared her throat, stepping back, restoring that invisible line between us. "Drive safe," she said, her voice composed again. But I carried the weight of that brief touch all the way home, like something forbidden had just chosen me, even for a second. The rain came hard that evening, hammering the tin roof of the shop like it had a score to settle. I was closing up late, sweeping the floor, when headlights cut through the downpour. Her car again, pulled up sharp, wipers struggling, and then Clara stepping out with no umbrella. She was soaked in seconds, cardigan clinging to her arms. I rushed to the door, fumbling with the keys. "You'll catch cold," I said, and immediately hated how young it sounded, like something my mother would have said. She smiled faintly anyway, brushing damp hair back. The engine's knocking again. I didn't know where else to go. Her voice was quieter than the storm, and for a moment, I almost believed she hadn't meant the car at all. Inside, the shop was dim except for one buzzing fluorescent bulb. She sat on the edge of the counter while I checked the engine, her wet sleeves rolled up, skin pale from the cold. The storm made the silence heavier, pressing us closer than daylight ever allowed. "Rough night?" I asked, too casually. She hesitated. "He's not home anymore. I still expect him to be. Stupid, isn't it?" I set the wrench down slowly, letting the words settle between us. A confession slipped out like she hadn't planned it. Her husband was no longer just a vague shadow. He was absence, raw and open. I wanted to say something, anything. Instead, I only nodded, afraid that if I spoke, it would sound like more than comfort. Her eyes found mine. Steady, searching. There was a current in that look, enough to pull me forward if I let it. But then, her phone lit up on the counter, screen buzzing with a name I didn't recognize. She glanced at it, lips tightening, then flipped it face down without answering. The spell broke. I bent back over the hood, pretending I needed both hands, pretending I didn't notice how her breathing had quickened. "People always think they have more time," she said suddenly. "And then, one day, they don't." Her voice trembled, not from the cold. I wiped my hands on a rag and stepped closer, close enough to smell the rain in her hair. My chest ached with the weight of everything unsaid. How I wanted to tell her she wasn't foolish. How I wanted to stay in this closeness just a little longer. But restraint pulled me back. She wasn't mine to steady. Still, when she slid off the counter, her arm brushed mine. The contact was brief, accidental maybe, but I felt it everywhere. She looked up, lips parting like she was about to say more. And then the storm cut the lights, plunging the shop into sudden dark. I heard her inhale, sharp and close, felt the warmth of her presence inches away. For one suspended moment, I didn't know if I was leaning in or holding back. The lights flickered back on. She stepped away, and the moment was gone. I don't remember how long we sat there. The shop was closed, The storm had passed, and yet Clara stayed. Perched on a chair pulled near my workbench, her cardigan draped over her lap like she wasn't in any hurry to put the world back together. I busied myself with tools that didn't need cleaning, cloth dragging pointlessly over wrenches. She just watched me, steady, as though she was waiting for me to admit something I couldn't name. Finally, she spoke. "What are we doing?" Her voice wasn't sharp. It was tired, curious, like she genuinely wanted an answer to a question that had been building for weeks. I froze with a rag in my hands. The room seemed too small, too quiet. "I don't know," I said honestly. The words tasted raw. I keep telling myself it's nothing, but I don't believe it. Her lips pressed together, trembling faintly before she steadied them. "I'm old enough to know better." The silence that followed was heavier than any confession. She stared at the floor, one hand gripping her knee like she needed something to hold on to. "You're not," I started, then stopped. Saying "you're not old" would have been cruel in its simplicity, the wrong thing entirely. Instead, I said nothing. Just let the space between us throb with everything we weren't saying. Her eyes lifted to mine, and for a long moment neither of us moved. Her gaze didn't waver, though I saw it flicker with conflict, regret, longing, shame, something nameless all tangled together. I wanted to step closer. I wanted to say I thought about her more than I should. But the thought of breaking her open when she was already raw kept me rooted. Finally, she laughed, a brittle sound, the kind that breaks instead of lightens. "God," she whispered, "listen to me. Sitting here in a garage, asking a boy questions I can't even ask myself." "Don't," I said quietly. My voice cracked more than I meant it to. "Don't call me that." Her head tilted, eyes narrowing like she wanted to argue. But then she saw something in my face and stopped. The quiet stretched on, thick, aching. She pressed her lips together, blinked hard once, and when she spoke again, her voice was steady but faint. "I can't afford to need anyone right now." That was it. The line that hollowed me out. Not a rejection, not an invitation. Just the truth, bare and devastating, echoing in the dim shop. And I knew then, whatever this was, it could never go back to being nothing. She came back to the shop the next afternoon, not with her car this time, but with a box in her arms. "I need to clear space," Clara said, setting it down on the counter with a soft thud. "You're good with fixing things. Maybe you can tell me if any of this is worth keeping." Inside were scattered keepsakes, photographs curled at the edges, a watch with a cracked face, keys that no longer fit any doors. I picked up a picture, faded but clear enough. Clara, younger, standing in front of a half-built house beside a man whose arm wrapped around her shoulders. He had a wide, certain grin, the kind of expression that assumes the future will obey. Her hand darted forward and took the photo from me, too quickly to be casual. "That was a long time ago," she said. Her voice was even, but her eyes avoided mine. "Your husband?" I asked carefully. She shook her head. "Before him." The air shifted. I didn't press, but she went on anyway, as though the words had been waiting at the edge too long. "He wanted to build that house for us. Drew the plans himself. Talked about children, a garden, all of it." She laughed, quiet and sharp. "I told him he was ridiculous. That dreams like that don't last. He died 6 months later. Construction accident. And all I can remember is laughing at him." She set the photograph aside, face down, as though hiding it could erase the weight of what she'd said. I didn't know what to do with my hands. I rubbed the grease from my palms onto a rag until the fabric tore, but it didn't help. "You were young," I said finally, though it sounded thin, insufficient. Clara looked at me then, really looked, her gaze searching my face like she was trying to measure something invisible. "You remind me of him," she said quietly. The words landed like a blow and a blessing at once. My chest tightened, breath caught halfway. She must have seen the change in me, because her expression softened, almost apologetic. "Not in looks," she added quickly. "In the way you still believe people mean what they say. That things can last." We stood there in the hum of the shop, nothing but the tick of the wall clock filling the silence. I couldn't bring myself to meet her eyes again, afraid she'd see too much in mine. When she gathered the box to leave, her hand brushed mine, not accidental this time. She didn't pull away right away either. Just let the moment breathe before she finally withdrew. The door closed behind her, but the echo of her confession didn't leave with her. It stayed, lodged inside me, turning everything between us into something heavier, something that would never be casual again. It happened on a night that wasn't meant for anything. No storms, no broken cars, no excuses. Just me walking her home after she left something at the shop, and her inviting me in for tea like it was the most ordinary thing in the world. Her living room was warm, shadows stretching long across the walls. She curled into one corner of the couch, cardigan wrapped tight around her, while I sat stiff at the far end like I'd trespassed into some secret space. For a while we said nothing. The clock ticked, the kettle cooled, the silence breathing between us. And then, without looking at me, she spoke. I don't laugh at plans anymore. Her voice was low, almost fragile, but it filled the room like a confession. I swallowed. Because of him. Because of all of it. She answered, finally turning toward me. I used to think love was about promise. Houses, gardens, futures drawn on paper. Then it was about survival. Keeping a marriage alive even when it stopped being kind. Now, she trailed off, her gaze drifting, lost in some middle distance. I wanted to ask, and now what? But the question lodged in my throat. Instead, she saved me from it. Now I think it's just about finding someone who doesn't make the silence unbearable. Her eyes landed on mine with that last word. I couldn't look away. The pull wasn't sudden anymore. It had been building, quiet and steady, waiting for us to stop pretending. I don't know what this is, I admitted. My voice shook, but I didn't hide it. I just know I don't want to unknow it. A faint smile curved her lips, bittersweet and knowing. She leaned forward, elbows on her knees, and for the first time she didn't guard her closeness. Her hand rested between us on the cushion, fingers trembling slightly. I didn't reach for it right away. We just sat there, the air thick with the weight of restraint, of choice. Finally, slowly, I let my hand slide until my fingers brushed hers. She didn't pull away. We stayed like that, two hands barely touching, but it felt like the most irrevocable thing either of us had ever done. No kiss, no grand words, just shared space, a steady silence that didn't hurt to sit in. Her eyes closed for a moment, a soft exhale slipping out, like surrender. When she opened them again, she whispered, not to me, not really, but into the room itself. Maybe this is enough. And in that quiet finality, I knew it was. It's been months since that night in her living room. The night we didn't name what was happening, but stopped pretending it wasn't there. Looking back now, I don't remember the tea we never drank, or the flicker of the lamp, or even the words we exchanged. What I remember is the silence, how it stopped being heavy and started feeling like a place we could rest. I think about how I was then, 20-something, skin still smelling of gasoline, hands always dirty, chasing the idea that life hadn't really started yet. And then Clara, mid-40s, carrying regrets like old photographs she couldn't throw away. We didn't meet in some perfect place. We collided in the cracks. And maybe that's what love really is. Not a promise, not a plan sketched out on paper, but the willingness to sit with someone in their silence, to not flinch at the weight they carry. She changed me. I don't say that lightly. Before her, I thought closeness was about pursuit, about saying the right thing, making the right move. But with Clara, it was the opposite. It was about restraint, about not filling every space with words, about letting moments breathe until they told us what they wanted to be. And I saw her change too. She stopped apologizing for wanting more than survival. She started laughing again, not at someone's plans, but with the kind of ease that says she still has the right to imagine her own. We're not a storybook ending. She still keeps her distance some days. I still second-guess the lines we've crossed. But when I catch her watching me, quiet and unguarded, I know we've built something she didn't think she could anymore. A future that doesn't need permission to exist. Maybe that's enough. Maybe that's everything. And if you've listened this far, maybe you feel it too. The truth that love isn't about age or certainty or even timing. It's about the courage to stop pretending silence means nothing. If this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?